To this I hold, my hope is only Jesus, for life is only bound to me.
Alrighty, in today's passage we're going to meet a few people. We've got a slide just so that we can be clear as we hear their names. We're going to hear briefly about Samuel, who was that high priest to Israel, the judge and the prophet to Israel. We're going to hear about King Saul and about one of his children, his daughter, Michal, who earlier in 1 Samuel had been given to David to be his wife. We're going to hear about David, and actually 600 men go with him. There's 600 men, fighting men, following around with David, being kind of like a volunteer army to defend Israel. And two people we haven't met yet in this book. A man called Nabal, who's a very rich man, and his wife, Abigail. So that's the people we're going to meet. So far, we've seen many character strengths of David. He was chosen by God, who looked at his heart, not at the outside. He played music that would calm Saul's troubled spirit. He was successful in battle, and he was a military defender of Israel. Even though the king was against him, he refused to take revenge against Saul or to harm Saul. Today we will see someone show really good character, but it's not David. A bit of David's history before we get to the passage. Saul had promised his daughter Michal to whoever killed Goliath, and pretty much all women in those days had no choice about who they would marry. They married someone chosen by their father. A woman went from her father's house to her husband's house. If she outlived her husband, she would then go and live with a son. And a woman without a close male relative to provide for them was in a very vulnerable place. So when David killed Goliath, Saul made good on his promise. Michal became David's wife. And Saul kind of hoped Michal would be like a spy. He'd have an ally inside David's home. But Michal fell in love with David, and so she was more loyal to David than her father. So when David ran for his life, Saul took Michal back to his house and kept her with him. So David's on the run for his life. He has these 600 fighting men living in remote places like mountains and caves. Our whole series, we've got the series slide, asks the question, who will be king? In both of our readings today, wisdom is very important. As we ask the question, who will be king, we'll see a king needs courage and a king needs wisdom. So let's listen out for these two passages today and how they speak about courage and wisdom. We start with Lynn and Ginu with our New Testament reading.
This Bible is from James chapter 3, starting at verse 13. If anyone among you wise and understanding, that person should show it by living a good life. A wise person isn't proud when they do good deeds.
But suppose your heart are jealous and bitter, suppose you are concerned only about getting ahead, then don't brag about it, and don't say no to the truth. Wisdom like this doesn't come down from heaven. It doesn't come from the Holy Spirit, it comes from the devil. Are you jealous? Are you concerned only about getting ahead? Then your life will be a mess. You'll be doing all kinds of evil things.
But the wisdom that comes from heaven is pure. That's the most important thing about it. And that's not all. It also loves peace. It thinks about others. It obeys. And it is full of mercy and good fruit. It is fair. It doesn't pretend to be what it is not. Those who make peace plant it like a seed. They will harvest a crop of right living. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to
This reading is from 1 Samuel chapter 25, starting at verse 1. When Samuel died, the whole nation of Israel gathered together. They were filled with sorrow because he was dead. They buried him at his home in Ramah. Then David went down into the desert of Paran. A certain man in Maon was very wealthy. He owned property there at Carmel. He had 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep. He was clipping the wool off the sheep in Carmel. His name was Nabal. His wife's name was Abigail. She was a wise and beautiful woman, but her husband was rude and mean in the way he treated others. He was from the family of Caleb. David was staying in the desert of Paran. While he was there, he heard that Nabal was clipping the wool off his sheep. So he sent for 10 young men, and he said to them,
"Go up to Nabal at Carmel, greet him for me. Say to him, may you live a long time, may everything go well with you and your family, and may things go well with everything that belongs to you. I hear that you are clipping the wool off your sheep. When your shepherds were with us, we treated them well. The whole time they were at Carmel, nothing that belonged to them was stolen. Ask your own servants, they'll tell you. We've come to you now at a happy time of the year. Please, be kind to my men. Please give me and my men anything you can find for us."
When David's men arrived, they gave Nabal a message from David. Then they waited. Nabal answered David's servants,
"Who is this David? Who is the son of Jesse? Many servants are running away from their masters these days. Why should I give away my bread at the altar? Why should I give away the meat I prepared for those who clip the wool off their sheep? Why should I give food to men who come from who knows where?"
So David's men turned around and went back. When they arrived, they reported to David every word Nabal had spoken. David said to his men, "Each of you put on your swords." So they did. David put on his too. About 400 men went up with David. 200 men stayed behind with the supplies. One of the servants warned Abigail, Nabal's wife.
David sent some messengers from the desert to give his greetings to our master. But Nabal shouted at them and was rude to them. David's men had been very good to us. They treated us well. The whole time we were near them out in the field, nothing was stolen. We were taking care of our sheep near them. During that time, they were all like wall around us night and day. They kept us safe. Now think it over. See what we can do. Horrible trouble will soon come to our master and his whole family. He is such an evil man that no one can take even to talk to him.
Abigail didn't waste any time. She got 200 loaves of bread and 2 bottles of wine. The bottles were made out of animal skins. She got 5 sheep. They were ready to be cooked. She got a bushel of grain that had been cooked. She got 100 raisin cakes. And she got 200 cakes of pressed figs. She loaded all of it onto the backs of donkeys. And then she told her servants,
"Go on ahead, I'll follow you."
but she didn't tell her husband Nadab about it. Abigail rode her donkey into a mountain valley. There she saw David and his men. They were coming down toward her. David had just said,
"Everything we've done hasn't been worth a thing. I watched over that fellow's property in the desert. I made sure none of it was stolen, but he has paid me back evil for good. I won't leave even one of his men alive until morning. If I do, may God punish me greatly."
When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey. She bowed down in front of David with her face toward the ground. She fell at his feet. She said, "Pardon your servant, sir. Please let me speak to you. Listen to what I'm saying. Let me take the blame myself. Please don't pay any attention to that evil man at Nabal. His name means foolish person, and that's exactly what he is. He's always doing foolish things. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to see the men you sent."
Sir, the Lord has kept you from killing Nabal and his men. He has kept you from using your own hands to get even. So may what's about to happen to Nabal happen to all your enemies. May it happen to everyone who wants to harm you. And may it happen just as surely as the Lord your God and you are alive. I brought a gift for you. Give it to the men who follow you. Please forgive me if I shouldn't have done that. The Lord your God will certainly give you and your family line a kingdom that will last. That's because you fight the Lord's battle. You won't do anything wrong as long as you live. Someone may choose you and try to kill you, but the Lord your God will keep your life safe, like a treasure hidden in a bag, and he'll destroy your enemies. Their lives will be thrown away just as a stone is thrown from a sling. The Lord will do you every good thing he promised to do. He'll appoint your ruler over Israel. When that happens, you won't have this heavy load on your mind. You won't have to worry about who you killed, how you killed people without any reason. You won't have to worry about how you got even. The Lord your God will give you success. When that happens, please remember me.
David said to Abigail,
Give praise to the Lord. He is the God of Israel. He has sent you today to find me. May the Lord bless you for what you have done. You have shown a lot of good sense. You have kept me from killing Nabal and his men today. You have kept me from using my own hands to get even. It is a good thing you came quickly to meet me. If you hadn't come, not one of Nabal's men would have been left alive by sunrise. And that's just as sure as the Lord, the God of Israel, is alive. He has kept me from harming you.
When David accepted from her what she had brought him, he said,
Go home in peace. I've heard your words. I'll do what you have asked.
Abigail went back to Nabal. He was having a dinner party in the house. It was the kind of a dinner a king would have. He had been drinking too much wine. He was very drunk, so she didn't tell him anything at all until sunrise. The next morning, Nabal wasn't drunk anymore. Then his wife told him everything. When she did, his heart grew weak. He became like a stone. About 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal down, and he died. David heard that Nabal was dead, so he said,
Give praise to the Lord. Nabal was rude to me, but the Lord stood up for me. He has kept me from doing something wrong. He has paid Nabal back for the wrong things he did.
And David sent a message to Abigail. He asked her to become his wife. His servants went to Carmel. They said to Abigail,
David has sent us to you. He wants you to come back with us and become his wife.
Abigail bowed down with her face toward the ground. She said,
I'm your servant. I'm ready to serve him. I'm ready to wash the feet of his servants.
Abigail quickly got on a donkey and went with David's messengers. Her 5 female servants went with her. She became David's wife. David had also married Ahinoam from Jezreel. Both of them became his wives. But Saul had given his daughter Michal, David's first wife, to Paltiel. Paltiel was from Gallon. He was the son of Laish. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Well, it's a long chapter, but what a fantastic chapter of Scripture. In the Hollywood movie version, of course, it would become some great love story with the wedding at the end. But that's not quite what God is showing us here. Well, let's see that picture of David with his army, starting the story, every bit the hero. If you asked people of Israel at this time, who will be king? Many of them would have happily shouted, David! Even though Saul has been chasing David, David is hard at work defending Israel. Everyone is safer because of David and his men. Culturally, it was very appropriate for them to ask local households to help meet their needs. If David stood by while a village was attacked and let them be carried off, he wouldn't be in the wrong for not joining the fight. He wasn't a paid or conscripted soldier. He was doing this as a volunteer. If David and his men had rescued people and possessions that had been taken captive, the rules of war said they could keep all the possessions that they took back. If they didn't protect Nabal's family and the Philistines came and then David rescued them back, all of Nabal's animals could have been David's. But David chose to be proactive. When David and his men were nearby, Nabal didn't lose a single sheep or goat. They were able to live in safety and in peace. So now that it was harvest time, David sent word asking for some provisions for his men. They couldn't grow their own food, they were too busy fighting the battles. Well, we see here Nabal, the man who should have been incredibly grateful. We've got a slide for him. Nabal should have been keen to show his appreciation, but alas, Nabal was not a wise man. Like we heard in that passage from James, he was jealous, bitter, and concerned with getting ahead. And just like we heard in James, his life ended up in a mess as a result. David is out in the wilderness with his 600 men. Nabal, the rich man, is living it up like a king with incredible wealth. A huge household, flocks, herds, servants. He was also known to be rude and mean. He'd acquired this wife called Abigail, who was known for being beautiful and wise. We suspect that Abigail didn't choose this marriage. She had to put up a lot living with this rude and foolish man that she had been given to. But she doesn't wallow in self-pity. She gets busy making the best of her lot in life. One day, David hears Nabal is flipping the wool from the sheep. It's a big harvest celebration time when that happens. So he sends a few men to ask for provisions and supplies at this happy time. 10 young men. So David's hoping for a reasonably large amount of supplies that 10 men could carry back. Well, we see a picture here of David's messengers coming to Nabal very respectfully. They greet Nabal the way a person greets a king. We heard this kind of language last year in the book of Daniel and other times in the Bible when kings are addressed. May you live a long time. May everything go well with you and your family. And may everything go well with everything that belongs to you. And only then does David get to his request. He reminds Nabal of who he is and of the protection Nabal has received. He asks for provisions at this happy harvest time. But Nabal's answer to David is a huge insult. He calls David a nobody. The David who all Israel is singing about for killing tens of thousands of their enemies. Who are you, you nobody? He accuses David of being like a slave on the run from their master. Now, David is on the run from Saul, but he's no slave. He's not on the run to avoid an obligation. He's on the run in every effort to fulfill an obligation to protect and defend Israel, even though the king wants him dead. Nabal's words are so offensive. They are deeply insulting. They are lies about David's character. They are lies about his integrity. So we see again here David and his army, and I wonder if you've ever experienced like a blind rage. Something has happened that made you so angry you can't even think straight. You are filled with an intense desire to take action, to hurt someone, to right this wrong. We sometimes say a person snapped when this happens. This is what happened to David. Something in him snapped and his rage became all-consuming. He's angry. He's bitter. Do you remember that reading from James? Suppose your hearts are bitter. Are you concerned only with getting ahead? Then your life will be a mess and you'll be doing all kinds of evil things. This was so true of David. David's words start firing out of his mouth. He orders his men, each of you, strap on your sword. And King Saul. And in reading this, I wonder if some of David's rage is like a displaced rage because he can't take action against Saul. He's so angry with Saul and he can't do anything about it. And this overreaction is him saying, this man I will do something about. This Nabal, he's not anointed by God, so I'm going to stop him and his lies. You see the depths of David's character flaw. It's not only Nabal David wants to kill. He wouldn't need 400 men with him if he only wanted to kill one man. David plans to kill every man in Nabal's household. His servants, the free men, all of it. This is going to be a massacre. And in this moment, David does not look like a man who would make a good king. He does not look like a man who could manage conflict or bring peace. He looks foolish, not wise. Well, meanwhile, what's going on in Nabal's household? Let's see Abigail there at home. One of Nabal's servants, who's heard the whole exchange between David's men and Nabal, realises this means trouble. He doesn't know exactly what will happen, but he knows it's nothing good. And what can he do? He's only a servant. And he realises, Abigail is wise. He's probably seen Abigail operating in the background before to sort out problems, to bring peace. So he comes to Abigail and he tells her what happened. Now the servant's assessment of Nabal, his master, is pretty brutal. He must be very sure that Abigail is aware of her husband's faults for him to have the courage to say to his master's wife, he is such an evil man, no one can talk to him, no one can reason with him. Nabal is bad news. But what can Abigail do? Nabal won't listen to her. Nabal won't listen to anybody. We get the sense that Nabal has great capacity for violence as well. Abigail is wise, and not just with human wisdom. Abigail is a woman who has a lot of respect for the Lord. Our verse of the day reminds us of this. We've got it up on the slide. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. Abigail springs into action. She's not timid. She doesn't say anything to Nabal, but she puts together a generous tribute of rations for David and his men. Bread, wine, meat ready to cook, grain, dried fruits. She sends it on ahead so that David receives the supplies before he meets her. Then she bows to the ground and she speaks respectfully to him. But she also speaks with conviction and with wisdom and with insight. She's correcting David here. She's not holding back. Abigail's actions and wisdom are astonishing. Firstly, David is in a murderous rage with 400 men tearing through a valley intent on a massacre. One of our Aboriginal clergy out in the Roper Valley is known many times to have stepped out onto a street and stood between two fighting groups and called for peace and calm. He has an incredible gift of peacemaking, but stepping out like that takes a lot of courage and a lot of wisdom. For Abigail to approach David while he's in this angry state must have taken enormous courage. Secondly, Abigail shows an astonishing insight into God's view and God's plans. Let's see Abigail and David. I've got them there. Let's look more closely at her speech in verses 24 to 31. Abigail acknowledges the thing that David is angry about. Her husband is a fool. And then she speaks in a way that's almost prophetic. She speaks about what hasn't happened yet. She says, the Lord has kept you from killing. At the moment when Abigail says this, David is still intent on killing. He plans to kill and take revenge. But Abigail's words speak to David of the good future that can be if he listens. The Lord has kept you from killing. He's kept you from using your own hands to get even. Abigail encourages David to let God sort out his. Let God deal with him. It's not for you, David, to get even personally. Then Abigail speaks of God's call on David's life. People in Israel know that God has rejected Saul as king. They've heard about David being anointed and how amazingly God has helped David in battle. Abigail even references the time David killed Goliath when she says, "The Lord will destroy your enemies. Their lives will be thrown away just as a stone is thrown from a sling." She's reminding David he does not need to take revenge. Then Abigail speaks out what God will do for David in the future. The Lord will appoint you ruler over Israel. He'll give you and your family a kingdom that will last. She calls on David to be wise. Taking revenge, acting in anger, being jealous and fighting, they lead to your life being a mess. They lead us to doing things that we later regret. Anger and violence and revenge lead to sins that we live with for the rest of our life. Abigail reminds David if he calms down and leaves it to God to deal with Nabal, you won't have this heavy load on your mind. You won't have to worry about how you killed people without any reason. You won't have to worry about how you got even. And that's the important thing we all need to remember. Taking revenge hurts us. Let me say that again. Taking revenge hurts us. We think in the moment that we're hurting the other person and helping ourselves, but we're not. We are hurting ourselves. Taking revenge, hurting others because they've hurt us, payback is not God's way. Abigail knows this, and she uses great wisdom in explaining this to David. I'm not saying that we can't take action using our laws against someone who's done the wrong thing, but that's not what David was doing here. David wasn't going to find the judge and report something that had happened. David wanted to take personal revenge with his hands. Abigail speaks and David listens. He thanks Abigail. He thanks God for sending Abigail. He tells his men, turn around. Let's go back to camp. We're going to leave Nabal alone. Now, there are some people in the church today who think that women shouldn't lead. They think women shouldn't teach men, or say God doesn't want women to do these things. And this is a story we can point to that really challenges those ideas. God used Abigail to be a leader in this moment. She is the only godly leader on view in this chapter. God gave her the wisdom and courage to teach a man, the courage to correct a man in his error. And not just any man, the man who was the anointed king. Abigail leads, she teaches and corrects, and David thanks God for sending Abigail to him. David heads off to his camp, Abigail heads home, and we see here Nabal at his feast. There is, I've got a slide for Nabal having a banquet fit for a king. Who will be king? Nabal is so focused on his wealth and success that he wants to live like a king. He thinks he is like a king. He's also broke. Every single time in the Bible that we read about someone drinking a lot of wine, something bad is about to happen. Every single time. The Bible doesn't just tell us being drunk is a sin. The Bible shows us that being drunk leads to pain and disaster. Every single time the Bible makes that point. Here is Nabal, carrying on like a king, full of his own self-importance, drinking lots of wine, very drunk. Abigail realises there is no point talking to him tonight while he's in that state, so she goes to bed. The next morning, once Nabal has sobered up, Abigail tells him about what has happened. freaked out. He suddenly realizes what danger he was in. His household would not have defended themselves against David and 400 men. They couldn't have defended themselves at the best of times. But if David had arrived while they were all blind drunk, the massacre would have been over in minutes. Nabal realizes how foolish he was, how close he came to being killed, and he seems to have some kind of heart attack or stroke. He goes into something like a coma or a paralyzed state, and 10 days later, God takes his life. Nabal was shocked, not sorry, but shocked for what he had done. And just like our passage from the book of James, suppose your hearts are jealous and bitter. Suppose you're concerned only about getting ahead. Don't brag about it. Wisdom like this doesn't come from heaven. It belongs to the earth. It comes from the devil. Are you jealous? Are you concerned about getting ahead? Your life will be a mess, and you'll do all kinds of evil things. And now Nabal is dead. What then for Abigail? Let's see her. There's no mention of Abigail having any children yet, so she was quite likely a young woman. Her husband is dead. She has no children, and this is a really bad situation for her. She inherits nothing of Nabal's wealth. She might be taken on as property by whatever male relative ends up with Nabal's things, but she might find herself homeless and destitute. Yet God has a plan. David is so impressed by Abigail's feisty wisdom that he decides he wants her. He's going to marry her. And he sends messengers to ask her, and she goes. Now, in the Hollywood version, this would be a love story, a fiery meeting, a big conflict, and how it leads to love. But I don't think that's what's happening. Abigail is clear about what this looks like. She will have the job of serving David and his men. She becomes his third wife so far, and during the time that he's king, David ends up with literally hundreds of wives. This is God providing for Abigail. It gives her safety, it gives her a home, it gives her a place in society. In the broken and harsh patriarchy of the ancient Near East, this is a blessing for Abigail, and she turns it. Who will be king? We start to see that while David has many good qualities, he is far from perfect kingly material. David struggles with anger, he struggles with being impulsive rather than having self-control. He struggles with desire for revenge, he overreacts to insults, and we'll see these character flaws continue to come out in his life. Who will be king? Well, God has promised that David's family will be a kingly line lasting forever. But we need someone better than David to be that forever king. And we're blessed to know that forever king is not David, but is Jesus. We're also blessed to see that God uses all of his people. Abigail was a woman with limited resources. Her place was precarious. She was surrounded by wealth, and she had 5 personal servants. But in human terms, she was pretty powerless. But with God's strength, she had courage to face down the rampaging David. With God's wisdom, she found words that brought peace to a dangerous situation. And with God's blessing and favour, she found a home of safety. I'd like to invite the band to come back up as we close with the words of our 2 New Testament passages. Is anyone among you wise and understanding? That person should show it by living a good life. A wise person isn't proud when they do good deeds. The wisdom that comes from heaven is pure. It loves peace. It thinks about others. It obeys. It's full of mercy and good fruit. It's fair. It doesn't pretend to be what it's not. Those who make peace plant it like a seed. They will harvest a crop of right living. Is it always easy to live this way? No. But the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power and love and self-discipline. worship our God in song, remembering that all we do is not in our strength, but in the strength of Christ who works through us.
To this I